This video is brought to you by these fantastic sponsors, as well as Mobile Gaming News Network, mobilegamingnews.com, your one-stop shop for all your mobile gaming news, reviews, and information you can use. Head on over and sign up, and if you are inclined to write some articles, go ahead and sign up for that as well. We are always looking for more writers. But with that, let's get into the video. Hey guys, what's up and welcome to the channel. It is not Wednesday, it is Friday, and as we were promised, we got the developer notes, and these notes, I read through them a little bit while I was on a work meeting this morning. These notes are absolute fire. There's some amazing stuff in here that's going to be huge game changers, and we're going to go over all of it. So first up, the Covenant 5 stars. We're going to get a change to Melissa. We're going to get a change to Cecilia. And we're going to get a change to Tenebria. Now, the other day I was talking about, somebody was like, oh man, I want to change to Melissa. And I'm like, you know what? Melissa's really not that bad. A lot of people complained about her at the start, but a lot of people have figured out how to work with her. You know, realistically, imagine a character with elemental advantage on their S3 and an extra turn on a crit being super terrible, but you know, whatever. There's some Senku level players out there that think that she is literal trash, but regardless, anyways, we're gonna get a change to Rose, Clarissa, and Kawazu. And if you don't know who Kawazu is, that is Fire Ricardo that most people have never used, and we whooped the living crap out of in the story. For Moonlight 5s, we're gonna get a change to Specter Tenebria. Now for 4 stars, Fighter Maya and Celestial Mercedes. Now Celestial Mercedes is one of my premier B11 first wave clears, so it's going to be cool to see what she gets. Now for 3 stars, Doris and Requiemroar. Now most people don't even know that Doris is a character, let alone what she even remotely does. So anything that they can give her is probably going to be pretty good, because the amount of people that I've seen actually run Doris is none. Literally, I've never seen anybody run Doris, like, ever. Requiemroar is a little bit around and was a little bit more in, like, during the beginning of the game, but a lot of people are sleeping on Requiemroar as well. Now for artifacts, we're getting some changes on some artifacts as well. It's going to be Holy Sacrifice, because bringing Crow back to life and him wiping your team just wasn't enough, that they needed to change it. So the other thing is going to be Shimadra Staff, Uberius Tooth, and Dingus Orb. Man, I love the name Dingus Orb. It's Dingus Orb, but I call it Dingus Orb, and that's what it's going to be forever in my mind and my heart. I will never call it Dingus Orb, because Dingus Orb does not sound even remotely as cool as Dingus Orb. So anyways, let's get into these. First up is going to be Melissa. Now for the manifestation, her attacks, she attacks by unleashing her inner rage, granting immortality to the caster for 1 turn. It also looks really, really cool. Now what is this going to do? This is going to reset skill cooldown. Skill cooldown is reset when the enemy is defeated. Now, what does this mean? If you're S3ing and then S2ing and then killing somebody, guess what? You can just S2 the next turn, and guess what? That just extends your immortality for another turn. So as long as you're killing things, you're good to go. Easy peasy. So this makes her actually really, really good in PvE as well, for clearing like fodder, or not fodder, but you know, clearing like waves in hell mode, stuff like that. She's going to have that immunity, or that immortality, so you're just going to be keeping that up, and you're going to keep S2ing, and you're going to be doing a bunch more damage. So that's going to be really, really good. Now we're going to go to the next one. This is Blood Bloom Awaken. This dispels all enemy buffs from the enemy before attacking. So, oh darn, they put up a bunch of buffs. They put up some immunity, so I can't curse them. Guess what? Gone, done. Get out of here. It does seem though that like a lot of times they're all-purpose band-aid for fixing a character's. You know what? Just have them remove buffs. Just F buffs. Just get them off of there. Don't even care. Just fuck them. Just fuck buffs. Get rid of them. We're done. We're done with these buffs. So just slap that on the character. Easy peasy. Do they have a debuff on their S3? Just make them get rid of all the buffs on the enemy. So this is actually going to be really good though, because you're going to just want to make sure that you have a little bit of effectiveness on there. You're going to be able to strip those buffs, you're going to be able to put curse on, and then you're going to be able to pull off that combo. Now let's go into like what their thought process is. And this is actually one of the things I really, really like about the dev notes, is their thought process. So Melissa was originally designed as a hero who can deal significant damage to 2 enemies at the same time through her curse ability. However, this uniqueness turned out to be somewhat underwhelming when compared to other heroes. I mean, it's kind of a unique it's a unique thing, so kind of can't be really underwhelming. Through the balance adjustment, Melissa will have more opportunities to inflict her curse debuff on enemies, and will consequently be able to compensate for her lack of survivability by being a more effective damage dealer. I mean, immortality is kind of a pretty big survivability buff there. But regardless, after this balance adjustment, Melissa will dispel the enemy of all buffs prior to doing damage. In other words, she will be able to deal damage and inflict her curse debuff on enemies that have had the buff immortality and skill nullifier prior to her attack. She will be exponentially more effective against heroes who do not have high effect resist. So this is going to be really good. Like I said, slap a little bit of effectiveness on her, drop that curse, build her with some damage. Bam, you're dropping multiple people at the same time. Hit like the Seaside Bell with the curse on the first run with the elemental advantage, and then follow up on killing their Charles with the S2. Easy peasy, 2 people off of the map. This is probably going to make her a lot stronger in Guild Wars. In Arena, probably maybe a little bit, not as much, but we'll see how that goes. Additionally, Blood Blooms. If a Melissa defeats an enemy using Manifestation, the cooldown for Manifestation will be reset. Since Manifestation grants immortality to herself as well as attacks the enemy, she can consistently remain immortal in the case she can continuously defeat an enemy hero every turn. This possibility to use Manifestation every turn if the conditions are met despite the 4-turn base cooldown will increase Melissa's utility. This is really, really good here. So you're just going to be wiping things out, getting that immortality, keeping going. I mean, realistically, like let's say in PvP, you're not going to be, there's only 4 people. So really, if you're doing that much damage, chances are it's not going to last too much longer than like 2 or 3 turns. Regardless, additionally, Melissa's Blood Bloom will be more effective against enemies with buff effects during the early game. We hope our heirs will utilize her damage dealing capacity along with her unique ability to remain immortal. Now going on to Cecilia, and this is a character that's overshadowed by quite a few, but her damage can be pretty nutty if you build her right. I've seen some weird theory crafting on like the things that she can do, and I've ran some numbers through some damage calculators, and was actually a character that I was going to look into potentially building, but this is even better. So we're going to take a look at her Steel Cloud Burst. Now this attacks all enemies with a magical spear with a 85 to 100% chance to decrease attack for 2 turns. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. Now this is a lot better because it takes out the whole chance increased by 50% when the caster's health is less than 50%. Just makes it static across the board. Takes that out, makes it a lot easier. That is what that is. Now, Ruinous Retribution attacks all enemies with a spear infused with dark energy with an 85% to 100% chance to provoke for 1 turn before granting immunity to all allies for 2 turns. This is really good. And a barrier to the caster for 2 turns. Damage dealt and barrier strength increases proportional to the caster's max health. Now this is really good because you're going to be provoking people and you're going to be giving yourself immunity as well as she's going to get a barrier. Now why is this so good? You could pair her up with, let's say, a Bazaar strip or anybody who can strip, immunity sets off of people. Boom, immediately follow up with her 100% chance to provoke for 1 turn. Now everybody on your team has immunity as well for 2 turns. And so she can take the place of like the very speedy immunity character. Not only that, but you can, like I said, build her a little bit on the damage size, but you do want to have some heft on her for the damage scaling as well as this barrier strength. So that is pretty sweet right there. Cecilia is a hero with many buffs and debuff effects. However, she was relatively difficult to utilize. With this balance adjustment, she will be improved so that our heirs can find more content where they can use Cecilia. This will be enacted by adding an additional buff effect that can influence the battle. Cecilia will gain the ability to grant immunity to all allies for 2 turns when she uses Ruinous Retribution. Given Cecilia's relatively high base speed, it's true among the classes of knights, Our heirs can better counter enemy heroes who rely on inflicting debuffs. Additional, when she uses Steel Cloudburst, the probability of inflicting decreased attack will dramatically increase regardless of Cecilia's remaining health. Upon completion of her skill enhancement, the chance to inflict it will go up to 100%, stabilizing her ability to inflict the debuff to enemies. Now, one big thing is a lot of people don't even think about reduced attack. Like, a lot of people don't think about like defense up and attack reduction. That really cuts out a ton of DPS that a character can do. So like if you have defense up and you have attack down, they're going to be doing no damage. You're just going to be able to like sit there and be like, ha ha ha, that was adorable. You just tickled me, as you then wreck their face. So that is pretty solid. Definitely liking that. Now, Tenebria, I think this is the 4th, 5th, 17th change that they have done to Tenebria. So let's take a look at it anyways. Dark Explosion attacks with an explosion of dark energy with a 60% to 70% chance to put them to sleep for 1 turn. When an enemy is put to sleep, the caster's combat readiness increases by 50%. This does not trigger a dual attack. So they buffed the chance to have that trigger by 20%. So that's not bad. That's not bad. Nightmare drops a moon of Nightmare on all enemies with a 70 to 85% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns and put them to sleep for 1 turn before increasing attack of the caster for 2 turns. So again, they increased hold on, they didn't increase anything here, did they? They'll probably tell me down here in the descriptions, because as I say, like that's green, that's 70 to 85%, that's 70 to 85%. So Tenebria will be improved so that she can better utilize debuffs and more actively utilize her increased combat readiness after she uses Dark Explosion. First, the sleep debuff will be added to her skill Nightmare. To put them to sleep. It was already there. Decrease, unless you just literally copy pasted it. First, sleep debuff will be added to her skill Nightmare. She will have an 85% chance of inflicting this debuff, equivalent to the increased probability she will have for inflicting decreased defense buff. No, hold on. 70 to 85% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns and put them to sleep for 1 turn before increasing attack. 70 to 85% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns and put them to sleep 1 turn before. What am I missing here? Chance to decrease and put them to sleep for 1 turn before increasing attack for 2 turns. Oh, increased each. Oh, okay. So they're separating those modifiers out so that it's an 85% chance to decrease defense and an 85% chance to decrease or to put them to sleep. So that way it's not like if you fail one, you fail both. Okay, fair enough. First sleep debuff will be added to her Nightmare skill aid, blah, 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 equivalent to the increased probability she will have for inflicting the decreased defense buff. With the addition of the sleep debuff, along with the high chance for it to be successfully inflicted, we hope Tenebria can be a more strategically effective choice for our heroes. Additionally, the probability for Tenebria to inflict sleep via Dark Explosion will also be increased. The additional effect acquired through Awakening, a 50% chance in combat readiness, will allow her to be more useful after this balance adjustment. So I don't know. I still don't see too many people using her. It is good that they change those out. Anything that has like a chance to do both things always sucks when one of them's one of them doesn't hit, then all of them don't hit. So at least separating those out is really good. So let's take a look at the Specter Tenebria version. So what's this going to do? Poison Blast. Now this skill cannot trigger a counterattack. Attacks 2 enemies when Endless Nightmare is on cooldown. I like things that don't trigger counterattack, because in this meta, as much as I love counterattack sets and I love running counterattack sets and I love everything that has to do with counterattack sets, having characters that don't get countered is pretty clutch, and I liked that about Fallen Litica or Faithless Litica. Specter Tenebria gained a unique passive ability after her rework. However, it was still very difficult to use her despite a great amount of interest our heirs have shown in her. With this balance adjustment, we improved the effectiveness of her Poison Blast so that she can become more active a more active choice for our heirs. After the balance adjustment, if Endless Nightmare is on cooldown, Specter Tenebria will attack 2 enemies with Poison Blast, and this skill cannot trigger a counterattack from her enemies. Additionally, when the condition is met, she will target 2 enemies at the same time, dealing the same amount of damage to 2 enemies as she did to a single enemy before. With this change, we expect her to become a more threatening choice. Last but not least, since she cannot be countered after using Poison Blast, our heirs will be able to effectively use her against enemy heroes with counterattack capabilities. Specter Tenebria previously was easily overpowered by heroes with counterattack capabilities despite her passive skill, Nightmare Illusion. After this balance update, our heirs will be able to more readily utilize her in cases where 1, the enemy does not have a hero with an AoE attack, or 2, or there are sufficient mechanisms to prepare against those AoE attack skills in the team formation. So that is pretty good. That is pretty good. It gives her quite a bit of extra abilities there, and the whole can't be counterattacked thing, phenomenal. So that is going to be pretty interesting to see how that works out. So let's talk about Rose. Now, this is going to, the first one, things are going to stay the same, but they're going to talk to a little bit about this in the description down here. So let's talk about Goddess of Victory. Gives blessing to all allies, increases attack for 2 turns and combat readiness by 15%, max 25%, grants increased defense to the caster for 2 turns. And like I said before, increasing defense is really huge in terms of keeping your survivability up. So Rose was originally designed to be a hero who increases the combat readiness of defensive capabilities of allies. However, since there were many situations where her defensive abilities were not very effective, adjustments will be applied. After this balance adjustment, Rose will be able to grant defense buff to herself for 2 turns. Though we already talked about that. We expect Rose to survive much better until she uses Shield of Light. That's her S2. Additionally, the barrier strength granted by Shield of Light will be increased to double the previous strength. Since this barrier strength increases in proportion to her defense, as long as the increased defense buff is still active, when she uses Shield of Light, the additional defense will increase the barrier strength. This is actually really, really solid because she puts a barrier on her, removes debuffs, puts a barrier on somebody else, increased defense. This is going to be like really buffing up her survivability. If you need a combat pusher with an attack up with some survivability, make a quick Rose. Really, really solid stuff right there. Now, Clarissa, this is going to increase attack speed, or this is her rage. Rage can't be dispelled. It increases attack and speed by 10%. So you can't dispel that anymore. Great. Hysterics attacks all enemies by spinning, inflicting 2 bleed effects for 2 turns with a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns as well. The caster then becomes enraged. Damage dealt is increased. So this is going to increase an extra chance for a bleed. So it's going to be 2 bleeds. You're going to have 2 bleeds, and this is going to also give you a 50% chance for decreased defense. That's actually a pretty solid combo right there. Clarissa is another hero that our heirs have shown a great amount of interest in. Adjustments will be applied so that she can counteract her weakness and more effectively inflict debuffs. Bleeding, which was originally inflicted only if she fulfilled the conditions of being enraged, will be changed so that the condition is no longer necessary. Hysterics will now inflict 2 bleeding debuffs and will now have a 50% chance to inflict the debuff decreased defense, which will better help her contain her enemies. And by contain, they mean just absolutely slaughter her enemies, easy peasy like. So this additional, her core status, rage, can no longer be dispelled, which will allow her to be more effective. We hope the heirs can find Clarissa capable in dealing stable damage by continuously being enraged. This is really, really good. I do like that she can't be dispelled on her rage, really shouldn't be, because she is raging. You can't just be like, hey, stop that, knock it off. Knock that enragement off. So this is really good. So let's talk about Fire Ricardo, and who is even leveled Fire Ricardo. Raise your hand in the comment section if you have actually used and leveled Fire Ricardo Kawazu here. First up, Ember Storm. So this is attacks with a fiery explosion, making the target unhealable for 2 turns. This is going to make them unhealable and decrease defense. Just slap a decreased defense on there, increased viability. Kawazu's Ember Storm will be improved so he can be a suitable choice for content such as hunts. When Kawazu uses Ember Storm, it will now inflict decreased defense along with unhealable, similar to before. This change will make Kawazu... The UPS guy is here. I'll be right back. Okay, so now that the UPS guy has come and Odin is going to be sitting right here. Sit down for a second, you mister. You're going to be over here hanging out. Let's get back to talking about Kawazu. So one of the big things is that, you know, he really wasn't that well used. There's not too much that he brought to the table that other characters didn't bring to the table. So you really didn't use him at all. He was very underwhelming, very mediocre. And so with this, at least, you know, you can get the decreased defense and the unhealable in on this. So when you use his Ember Storm, it's now going to increase inflicting decreased defense along with unhealable, similar to before. This change will make him more capable of strengthening allies' offensive abilities. There's also going to be a 13% increase in the base damage dealt by this skill. So that's also going to be really good, increase in the damage that he can do on this. So it is a 3-turn cooldown, so that is pretty good. So we're going to see how this works out. So we're going to have 2 turns of decreased defense on here, and we'll see how that works. There should only be theoretically 1 turn where you don't have that on there. So, and Odin is still freaking out a little bit here. Come here, pupper. Hey, calm down. Calm down. Okay, so Fighter Maya, and this is the one I'm most excited for because I love me some Fighter Maya. So Fighter Maya, her Strike of Provocation, before 50% chance to provoke for 1 turn. This was actually pretty good because you had a 50-50 chance. You ran her on counterattack, you ran her on Elbrus Ritual Sword, and she would be, you know, she would be provoking things pretty regularly. So now they're going to increase it to 75% chance, which is already pretty big. Soul burn it for 10, and you get that chance up to 100%. 100%. Hey, there's a thing right there. It's provoked now. Easy peasy. So that's actually really, really good. The 75% chance is going to be huge. Counterattack, Elbrus Ritual Sword, Fighter Maya. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You hit her, you get counterattacked, you get provoked. You hit somebody else, you get counterattacked, you get provoked. So this is going to be really, really good. Now the finishing attack, the slam dunk, the big hitter, the home run hitter right here, attacks with a powerful smash. Damage dealt increases by 300% when the enemy's health is less than 300 or 30. Damage increases proportional to the caster's defense. Now, this is going to be changed to grant the caster an extra turn when the enemy is defeated. So that's going to be really, really big here because now she's going to be a threat, because if she knocks somebody off, guess what? She's going to follow up and provoke somebody else. Bam, mace to the face. Now, there's going to be more, but wait. There's more, and this is the reason why I love Fighter Maya. Fighter Maya is a hero who has great survivability and damage output once certain condition is met. She will be improved so that her presence in battle can be maximized. To this end, she will be given an additional turn when she successfully defeats an enemy hero. In addition, the damage output for her skill finishing attack will be increased so that matches the damage dealt when soul burned prior to this balance adjustment. That's right, flat across the board increase in damage to the soul burned level that it was. So yeah, it's already amazing. That's already a huge buff. 75% chance for the provoke, extra turn if she kills somebody. This is going to be really, really solid. As the soul burn effect for finishing attack will now become the base attack damage, a new soul burn will be given to the Strike of Provocation. If Fighter Maya soul burn Strike of Provocation, she will have a 100% chance to inflict provoke on the enemy, improving her ability to contain her enemies. Additionally, the default probability of provoking the enemy will be increased by 25%. This is going to be insanely huge. She's the Teflon Don. You can't stick any debuffs to her. You stack this girl with defense, crit damage, crit chance, and she's going to counterattack, Elbrus counterattack, and she's going to be dunking on people. And that S3 is huge. 300% increased damage, just soul burned damage increase just flat across the board. Amazing. She's going to be a huge threat, and I'm actually super looking forward to just building her out. I run her in arena, or in not an arena. I run her in Guild Wars whenever I see an assassin Kali. I use her sometimes against Arbiter Vildrids. It's gonna be real fun because I got a lot of counter attack defense up items. Yes, I can finally put those to use. Now let's talk about Sea Merc. So really all they did here was they flipped the soul burn over to Dimensional Rupture instead of on Final Awaken. So Celestial Mercedes will be improved so that her soul burn effect will be applied to Dimensional Rupture rather than Finale. So basically what they were saying is, like, your soul burn was on your S3, right? So that reduced all your skill cooldowns by 2 turns. So you really didn't, you wanted to use S2 and then soul burn S3 so that you could get the cooldowns on both of them. But now you can S3, get the combat readiness, then you soul burn S2 and get the skill cooldowns on both of them. So this is actually really solid if you're using her for, cleaving. But realistically, with Sea Merc, you're kind of a one and done, man. You just use her to blow things up, S3 into S2, and then everything should be dead. But let's talk about Doris. Now, who even knows what Doris does? Nobody knows what Doris does. So we're going to talk about Light Curtain. Recovers an ally's health and increases their combat readiness by 30%, with light magic healing's proportional to the ally's max health. Now, let's see here. So before it was recovers an ally's health and increases their combat readiness by 30%. With light magic, when the ally is granted continuous healing, the amount of health recovered is doubled. So I'm pretty sure they're just going to roll that into it. So let's talk about it. Doris's improvement will be focused on reducing the conditions required for healing, as well as her ability to heal allies. Having a continuous heal buff active was the condition for increasing the amount of health recovered. With Doris's Light Curtain, this condition will be deleted, and Doris will instead only heal the increased amount. Outstanding. I like to think, outstanding. She will be able to heal 50% of an ally's max health without any condition. Since 50% of max health is a notable amount to be healed among Soul Weavers, we hope that, wow, 50%, that is actually really big. We hope our heirs can use Doris effective in several situations. Wow, that is actually really big. Single target, 30% combat readiness, and 50% heal. Might be sleeper champ here. Might be sleeper champ. We'll see. That's actually, that is really big. So you just boom, 50% heal on any of your big tanky boys, your tanky bruisers, 30% combat readiness. They're up at the front now. They're going to be doing some damage. Fantastic. So Requiemroar, you might know Requiemroar as the person who gives passive lifesteal. Pretty solid when things die. Used to give 15% health recovery for every enemy that died. Now 20%, and increases the caster's combat readiness by 10%. This is pretty good because it increases the heal that you get, and it pushes Requiemroar more closer to the front, which makes it so that she is more in combat a lot more. So this is a minor change, but not bad. I definitely dig that one. So let's talk about artifacts. Holy Sacrifice. So this one was typically ran on like a Crow, so even if you killed him, he resurrected with 25% of his hit points, and then he S3'd and then killed whoever on your team, and then was a pain in the butt. It only worked one time. So because Holy Sacrifice is an artifact whose skill can only be activated once, its utility was not high, and therefore it was not an appealing choice for our heirs. Therefore, we will make an improvement in order to increase the caster's survivability until the caster's turn. So this is going to resurrect them, grant them a barrier for 1 turn, and the barrier strength is proportional to the caster's max health. So they come back with a huge barrier. That's pretty solid. And upon the adjustment, Knight class heroes who are revived with this will be granted a strong barrier proportional to caster's max health. Since the Knight's class often has high health, they are expected to have a turn after this improvement. Additionally, the issue where the revival effect from Holy Sacrifice coincided with the buff revive will be fixed following the update. When this balance adjustment is applied, it will be fixed so that the revive buff will apply first, and then the revival effect from the artifact Holy Sacrifice will take place. That's a little bit more of a, so, you know, Crow's gonna absolutely get that second turn to one shot one of your peeps. So Shimadra Staff, and this is one that I'm actually really interested in here. Actually the next two, this one and the next one. So Shimadra Staff, this is gonna do all the same stuff that it used to do, but it's going to increase effect resistance of all allies by 20%, base 20% across the board, which is not a huge amount, but it's an amount. It's 20% of an amount. So, I mean, 20% is better than 0%. Let's be real, you know, unless you're trying to get debuffed, in which case 0% is 150%. I'm looking at you, Champ Zerato and ML Tywin. Yeah, Shimadra Staff will be improved so that the artifact can also increase the effect resist of all allies in addition to increase the healing effect it currently has. Upon equipping it, all allies will gain an additional 20% effect resist. Once this improvement is applied, we expect our heirs to more effectively counter hero combinations which rely on debuffs. Such utility can be maximized when the artifact is used along with heroes that increase effect resistance. I think that the only one who does that is Elena, but you know, other than like with imprints. We hope our heirs can build stronger defense teams by taking advantage of this increase in effect resistance along with the healing granted. I know that I'm going to actually be looking at that a little bit differently now on some certain heroes. I may run Shimadra Staff now on Maid Chloe, because it'll give effect resist. She already has some decent effect resist, and it will also increase the healing that she does on the first turn. And so, yeah, I believe it also increases the healing on lifesteal, but correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. Next one is huge. Next one is real huge. I am super excited about this one. Uberius Tooth. So before, you pretty much had to have this one maxed out, and you had to have pretty much a 100% chance to crit in order to really make this thing work for you. Because before, you know, on a single attack, when you crit, it did additional damage, much like Rengar's Drink, right? So now it's just a 50 to 100% chance to inflict additional damage on a single attack. Additional damage increases proportional to the caster's attack. Now, previously it was a 30% increase to, or 30% of your attack was dealt as extra damage. It also bypassed 70% of the target's defense, which is really big for a single target. So what are they going to do now? Although additional changes granted by Uberius Tooth targets a single enemy, difficult condition to meet, an additional damage was not very effective. I actually kind of disagreed with that. Thus, we will reduce the requirements for activation and increase the damage by 50%. So if the 30% is added to the 50%, that's 80% of your attack as extra damage. Now, I know what you're thinking. You know what? That's probably not going to be too bad. You know, I have about 4K attacks, so 80% of that is going to be quite a bit of damage there. 8K Gunther. Guess what? Gunther can use this now. No reason to, no crit requirement. Guess who's going to be running this? 8K attack Gunthers, baby. That's right. Just imagine getting clapped by an 8K attack Gunther and then having this trigger. Who's going to be left standing? Nobody. Don't need to crit anymore. This is going to be a Gunther artifact for sure, but this is going to be pretty good on a lot of characters. It's going to increase a lot of your single target damage. And I'm looking forward to running this. I can dust this bad boy off and take it off my arena and put it on maybe some other characters that can use this a little bit better after the patch. Now, Dingus Orb. So before, it granted a barrier equivalent to 60%, max 120% of attack for 2 turns when the caster used a non-attack skill. Not bad, but now it not only does that, but it's going to increase the damage of your next attack by 15%. So this is actually pretty solid if you're running casters that, you know, buff and then attack. If you need somebody who needs that continuous shield, You know, I'm looking at you, Vivian. This is actually really good for Vivian because she'll have greater attack, plus she'll have a shield, plus she'll have debuff immunity, plus she'll have an extra 15% damage on the next attack. Pretty solid. It's you know, definitely going to make it so that you're going to be doing a little bit more damage, not too much more damage, but this would be pretty good. You're going to want to put this on people who have non-attack moves that like set things up. Run this on your oxlots. No, don't run this on your oxlots. So it'll be interesting to see who people run this on. Vivian's the obvious one, but we'll see. Charlotte remake preview. Now this is actually a character that I was talking about in stream the other day. They're like, if you could get a balance change, who would you have in there? This is always one of the ones that I've wanted to have alongside of like Haste and a couple other characters. But anyways, focus is being changed to Fighting Spirit. The first change to be applied will make it so that Charlotte gains Fighting Spirit instead of focus. The remade Charlotte will be able to receive attacks from the enemies and then turn the tides of the battle by utilizing powerful skills. In this regard, we feel that the Fighting Spirit mechanism is a better fit for the new design rather than the focus mechanism, hence the change. So first off, dual swords. First, before attacks with 2 swords increases the attack of the caster, increases attack of the caster for 2 turns when the enemy's health is above 50%, or has a 50% chance to decrease defense of the enemy for 2 turns when the enemy's health is below 50%. Okay, cool. Dual swords after that acquires 1 focus. Now we're going to acquire 20 Fighting Spirit. Attacks with dual swords, 35% to 50% chance to decrease attack for 1 turn. When the caster is buffed and activates this skill on their turn, the attack will target all enemies and increase the caster's combat readiness by 20%. This skill does not trigger a dual attack. That is pretty solid. So yeah, you're going to be attacking everybody. And 50% chance to decrease attack. Remember, I told you before, decreased attack is pretty huge, and combat readiness. That is pretty solid. You're going to be able to go up to 65% chance on that one. Or no, max 50% chance. Okay, it's 35, and then I'm reading down there. It's just derpy. So you do get 20 Fighting Spirit off of that. Fantastic. We will first inform heirs of the remake to be enacted in regards to the skill Dual Swords. Previously, Dual Swords was a basic skill that could grant the caster increased attack or defense based on the decrease the enemy's defense. Since this mechanism of the skills were too complicated to use in ordinary situations, the utility of the skill was quite ambiguous. In order to address this issue, we will remake this skill so that Dual Swords can be more effective while maintaining conditionally. The remake Charlotte overall will also be sensitive to the enemy's attacks, so the debuff inflicted by dual swords will be changed from decreased defense to decreased attack. Additionally, the skill will be changed to a conditional AoE attack so that her impact per turn will become more significant as her basic attack becomes AoE and if a condition is met. So this is a lot like Purges, where when he counterattacks, he gets that AoE on his first skill, which is pretty solid. I do like that. Sometimes it's a downside because, well, guess what? If you're running a bunch of Elbrus counter sets, maybe she's going to just get completely dunked on. You don't want to counterattack an ML Ken, or you don't want to go AoE in on an ML Ken, and now you are. And yikes. So you're going to have to kind of plan around that a little bit more. So as her basic attack is condition met, the damage output for the skill was decreased by 10% when compared to a previous version. So that's understandable. I mean, you hit everybody. So in addition to this, the increased attack buff that was also conditionally granted to Charlotte will be improved so that it can be inflicted quicker via her passive skill, Will of Swamp. So before this was slams into the ground to inflict damage on all enemies with the 25 to 35% chance to stun for 1 turn, increases combat readiness by 30% each time an enemy is stunned. Now it's going to be when attacked, it's going to become a passive now. When attacked, the caster is granted increased attack and defense and acquires 10 Fighting Spirit up to 20 when attacked during the caster's turn. Acquired Fighting Spirit is doubled. Increased attack and defense can only be triggered once per turn. So if she gets counterattacked, this is going to be doubled up. That is pretty solid. So Increased attack and caster is granted increased attack and defense. Acquires 10 fighting spirit. Increased in attack and defense can only be triggered once per turn. Okay, fair enough. So you just get basically increased attack and a defense buff, and that's pretty cool. But how long does it attack? Or how long does it... It's permanent, I would assume. When attacked, the caster is granted attack and defense and acquires fighting spirit. When attacked during the caster's turn, acquired fighting spirit is doubled. Okay. Increased attack and defense can only be triggered once per turn. Is it an endlessly stackable thing? Let's talk about this. Charlotte's skill 2, Ground Slam, will be changed to a passive skill called Will of Swamp. Although it is essentially essential for Charlotte to use Ground Slam in order to maximize the damage output. For Vortex, her relatively low base speed, which is important, is an important stat, made it very difficult for our heirs to use Charlotte in practical situations. This is, though this remake, we will change the conditions for acquiring resources to being attacked, and as well as allow Charlotte to temporarily grant herself increased attack and defense. Okay, so it's temporary. It doesn't really say. Maybe once per turn. I don't know. By utilizing the newly increased defense buff, she will be able to better deal with sequential attacks from enemies. In turn will accelerate the pace at which she will be able to use her skill Vortex, allowing her to deal a large amount of damage to the enemy. Additionally, if she is attacked during her own turn, she will acquire more fighting spirit, which allows her to more effectively counteract the enemy combinations, which rely on counterattacks. So Vortex doesn't say how long it's going to last. Probably like 1, maybe 2 turns. I don't know. We'll see. So, all right, Vortex cuts all enemies. We know kind of what it did before. What does it do now? Awaken cuts all enemies while spinning with a 75% chance to make them unhealable for 2 turns. A successful attack always results in a critical hit. That is huge. Consumes 100 fighting spirit, no cooldown. So as long as you're getting 100 fighting spirit, you're going to just be able to do this whenever you want. So if you're going up against like AoEers or, you know, something like that, people who are targeting her, I don't know why, but this is going to be really big. Depending on how that defense buff works, man, that could be real big. And she's going to be doing AoE attacks because she's going to have increased attack and defense. So even when she's not doing Vortex, she's going to be AoEing on that first skill. This is really solid. That increases the soul burn, acquire 100 fighting spirit after using this. So for 10 souls, you could just double up on this. That is really big. So as long as you hit, you're going to crit. So you don't actually have to really run that much. You don't have to really worry too much about crit chance, just stacking crit damage and attack, because you're going to just run, you'll use Vortex. You're going to get fighting spirit from getting attacked. And when you use Vortex, everything's just going to die. That's going to be pretty solid. And you can just Vortex back to back with 10 souls, which isn't really super hard to get. So that's pretty tight. That is pretty tight. So the final part to be discussed is Charlotte's core skill Vortex. Previously, it had a high damage output if certain conditions were met. However, the condition itself was too difficult to be satisfied. Moreover, since the skill focused solely on dealing large amounts of damage, and there were no additional effects given to the skill, our heirs could not find an effective usage. Fair enough. Upon the remake planned for March, a successful attack always results in a critical hit, will be applied to the skill Vortex, and the damage will be reduced by 34.4%. That's understandable. Though this remake, through this remake, Charlotte's reliance on the critical hit chance stat will significantly decrease so that our heirs can have more freedom to invest in stats other than critical hit chance. Additionally, with the unhealable buff given, she will become a more effective choice against enemies who rely on healing or lifesteal. The soul burn effect will also be changed so that she can gain 100 fighting spirit, maintain her ability to use Vortex without any waiting period. These are the contents that have been prepared for our balance adjustment and preview and Charlotte remake. Dude, these are really big. A lot of these are really huge. I've already seen people that are, you know, just straight up complaining about this, like literally, where's ML Leo? Arbiter Vildred still instant kill all of them. Jonah, you are bad at this game. You are terrible at this game. Absolutely disappointing. Besides the Melissa and Specter Tenebria buff, the rest are pointless. They won't impact the game at all. Instead of balancing the current disgusting bruiser meta, you decided to buff Fire Tenebria again for the 4th time. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Oh man, shut up, Chromatus. You literally think outside the box, dude. Think outside the box. So yeah, so let's see. 30% plus 50%, 45% attack with 70% defense. So, okay. So anyways, let's see, look at data mine. All right. I didn't know that they had this out of the data mine. So they're going to add it 50% to the 30%, even 45% attack with 70% defense ignore is really not that bad, dude. Uberius, look at garbage anyways. It's not look at 5-star art, it's look at 3-star. That's cool. Artist Magna, because a lot of 3-star artifacts are really good and you're trash at this game. Anyways, guys, that is the balance changes. I'm super hyped for Fighter Maya, and I'm gonna be rocking her real hard. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. We will be talking about this extensively on the Infinite Library podcast that we will be doing this evening, and it should be up probably tomorrow or Sunday. But anyways, guys, let me know what you guys are hype about, and if you think that any of this stuff is going to be any big game changers, down in the comments. And if you guys did like this, make sure you like, fave, subscribe, share this out, because I'm fighting the YouTube algorithm that's keeping me down, keeping the man down, and I do appreciate any help that you guys get by sharing me out there. Make me doki of my Kokoro. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you guys later. Take it easy, homies. Peace.